Now we're going to go over how to assemble the rocket launcher. I'm not going to actually glue the pieces at this point. For the gluing, you should just follow the directions on the primer and the cement, but I'll just show you how the pieces go together and then you can glue them on your own. So first we will put the end caps on these 3/4 inch pieces. And I should note, when you cut the pieces, you'll want to scrape off any loose plastic bits and then use the sandpaper to sandpaper them smooth so you have nice smooth connections. So for these pieces we'll get these end caps and or the elbow. Then the next is to take the T's, and the pieces that have the end caps will go into one T, and then we'll go into the other T so that it looks like this. Next, another piece of 3/4 inch goes in here and then connects to the center one here and connects this way. Now when you're actually gluing this together, you'll probably want to glue this piece first and then this piece, and then finally put this in the middle, because the one thing that's really important here, most of it you don't need to be too careful about, but you do want to make sure this is as vertical as possible. You may want to use a level even to make sure this is as straight up and down as possible. And with the elbow here, I'd like to have the elbow sticking out this way, the open piece of the elbow sticking out this way, and then turn it so it's slightly elevated. Just because if you have it pointed down by accident, then it can cause this to be unstable, and then this won't be perfectly vertical. It will also, by tipping this up a little bit, it will encourage any water that comes into the system to not run back down the hose. So I just tip it up slightly. Next, we can screw the hose barb into the end of this and use some pliers, vice grips or something to tighten that up. Next, what we will do is glue the screw adapter here onto the 1/2 inch PVC pipe piece, and that will eventually screw into here. Then next we will glue the PEX tubing into one side of the 1/2 inch PVC tubing, pushing it in about halfway. And then we'll take our O-ring, and that will go over this tubing, and then the other piece of 1/2 inch PVC tubing will come over that. You want to make sure especially that these surfaces are nice and smooth and also are very even, because they're going to push down on the O-ring, and if they're cut unevenly, then the O-ring will bulge in different spots and it won't be an even seal. This O-ring is what the rocket is going to seal against. So you'll glue this down here, and what you want to do with the number 12 O-ring is push these down until it pushes against it, so it bows slightly out of the so there's some pressure on it, so it bumps slightly out of the line of the 1/2 inch tubing. If you end up gluing this and then testing it later, and it's not coming out enough, you didn't put enough pressure on it, then what you can do is carefully remove it, either cut it off and use a new O-ring, or slide a screwdriver in there and pull it off. And that's where the Teflon tape comes in. If there's not enough, if this isn't pushing out enough to seal, what you can do is take some of the Teflon tape and just wind it around here. Now that you will have already glued this together, so that you'll be winding it in that crack there. But you can just sort of wind it around, just kind of push it in like that, and that'll just add a little bit of space to push that O-ring out a little bit more the way you want to do it. So you would just you'd wind the tape in there and then slide the O-ring down and just experiment with it until it forms a good seal with the bottle top. So you can slide this down, and then if you put too much in, then just pull the O-ring off, and then try and then take a little off, and then put it back on. So you can then test for the bottle. Slide the bottle down and see it should go on, with some bit of firm pressure, but feel like it seals up nicely. You won't be able to do a great test until you can pressurize the whole thing, but an initial test, just the feel of it, you can tell kind of whether there's a good seal or not. Then once that is complete, you can start to work on the rest of the system. Okay, so our next step is to make the hose that we use to pressurize the rocket. And you can see that I've cut the Presta valve off of a bicycle tube, and I've used a pocket knife to remove all the rubber that I can from around the base of the tube. You can also use, as I said before, a Schrader valve, which is the more standard bicycle and car type valve. You just have to scrape a lot more rubber away. You'll be just sort of whittling down and carving down the rubber so that you're down to the bare brass on that. Then this will insert into one end of this tube, like so. And then you can just nicely put that small hose clamp around here, and then just tighten it up with your screwdriver until you form a nice tight seal. The other end of this tube will then attach to the hose barb on here. You just slide that in until it makes a nice tight seal. This hose barb is probably the most delicate part of the rocket launcher. I have broken off the barbs on here a couple times. And so if you're picking up backup pieces just to have in reserve, it might be worthwhile to pick up a couple extras of these. And then here's the adapter. So if I want to use my air compressor to pump this up, I'll just put the adapter onto here and just leave it there. So as I said before, this hose isn't very long. It'll get you, a few feet away from the rocket, but I would recommend probably about double this length to actually get yourself a good distance away from the rocket as it's being pressurized. Then once you have installed your Clark Cable style cable tie launcher and release mechanism on here, then this piece will just screw nicely into here. And if you're not getting a good seal on these threads, you can use some of that Teflon tape that I mentioned before. And a nice feature about using a threaded coupling here is that when you're done with the rocket launcher for the day, it just unscrews and stores nicely, a little more compact. This is a 1.5 inch coupling, and you can see there's a little lip on the inside that's going to interfere with the mechanism. So we're going to have to cut it off at a point where we can remove that lip. So there's the lip cut off, and I'll just sand around the edge here, and on the inside, any portions of the lip that I missed, I can just sand off. You can see here I've drilled 2 holes in the coupling across from each other and threaded a cable tie through one of them, and I'll thread a cable tie through the other side as well. You can see I've placed 2 hose clamps over the launch tube. These are 1.5 to 3/4 size hose clamps. They go from 1.5 inches around to 3/4 of an inch around when tightened. And what I'll do next is place a soda bottle over the launch tube down to the O-ring and over the O-ring in the launch position, where I want it to be when it should launch. And I've gathered a number of cable ties and put an elastic band around them. You can use a rubber band for this. What I'll do now is pull up the cable ties so that each one hooks over the lip of the soda bottle. Now that I have some of the cable ties in the general position that I'm going to want them to be, I'm going to take that soda bottle off and put my collar on over. And I'm going to line up the two cable ties from the collar so that they're parallel to the bottom. Now that I have a good number of the cable ties approximately where I want them to be, I'm going to take my collar with the two installed cable ties and put it over the launch tube and put the cable ties on the collar parallel to the bottom tube of the launcher. You can see I've put the collar on over the cable ties and tucked these cable ties from the collar into the elastic band, and you can see these are going to form a bit of a spring to help push the collar up and hold it up against the ties when they're fully installed. I've now reinstalled the bottle and on the launch tube over the O-ring, and I am going to continue to place cable ties in here until it's all full around the edge, keeping care not to overlap the cable ties, but just keep it just one layer, but pack them in as tightly as I can. I've taken a loop of string and looped it around the cable ties on the collar, and you can see there that it's just wound around and then fed down through and through the center pipe of the launcher, so that when the strings are pulled, the collar will move down against the spring, and then when released, the cable ties forming the spring will push it back up again. And that's the launching mechanism for the rocket.